Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another Black Ops Cold War video. So for this video, I'm going to be talking about PC optimization, how you can get the best and smoothest gaming experience out of Cold War, as well as possibly increasing, maybe even doubling your frames, so you're not just wasting frames on stuff that you really don't need. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Alright, so to get things started, I did want to mention that this is a PC optimization video, so this is not going to be a guide for consoles. So if you're on console, like I said, this is probably not the video for you. But to get things started, if you guys are feeling like slow to zoom in your sights, or you feel like the other person is seeing you first, or maybe your guns feel slow to swap back and forth, or maybe after a slide it takes forever to pull into your gun. A lot of these things can be caused by a loss of frames. So if you look up the top left of my screen, you can actually see how many frames I'm getting right now, which it looks like it's kind of moving from 65 to 85, which is actually really low for my computer. So like I said, these are going to be the default generic settings that come with Cold War. So everybody who's on PC is going to have to eventually go and change this. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with that loss of frames on stuff that you really don't need, like shadows, for example. Alrighty guys, so moving into settings under graphics, you're going to see refresh rate. This is going to be set to 50 Hertz by default. Go ahead and set this to the value of your monitor. So if your monitor is a 120 Hertz monitor, set it to 120. If it's 60 and you got a budget monitor like me, go ahead and set it to 60 Hertz. Now under menu VSync as well as gameplay VSync, go ahead and make sure both of these are disabled. You're not going to need them. Moving down to NVIDIA Reflex Low Latency, we're going to keep this at boosted. It does lower your in-game latency at the cost of your GPU. Now, maybe if your GPU isn't the greatest, maybe tone that down just a tad bit down to normal. Like I said, that's up to you guys, but if you do have a really good GPU, I recommend the boosted. Now, for the display resolution, I do recommend you matching this value to your monitor. So for me, that's 1920 by 1080. So the next thing is 100% optional, the field of view. I do recommend keeping this on 120 paired up with the affected aim down sight. I feel like it does give you less visible recoil, and I also feel like it helps you switch guns faster, move faster, slide faster. It makes me feel faster. Now this might just be something in my head, but I do recommend it. Now it's not going to necessarily help you with frames and stuff. I know some console players said that it did affect their frames. I haven't seen any kind of change in frame rate based on the FOV. Now moving on to the next thing that is also a preference, this frame rate limit. If you want to set your custom menu frame rate to 60 like I have, as you can see in the top right screen, so it's not pulling too many frames, you can do cool stuff like that from the frame rate limit. And then in gameplay, that's how many frames your game is able to pull max frames. So I'm probably never going to reach 250, but it won't go over 250 if it does get that high. So moving down to the most important part, the details and textures. This is where your frames are getting killed the most. If this texture quality, model quality, and special effects quality are all on high or ultra, they're going to kill your frames. So go ahead and move all those down to medium. For the screen space reflection, I do just recommend disabling this. You're not going to need it for your gameplay. For the object view distance, just because you set this to low doesn't mean cars are finna disappear, alright? I recommend setting that to low as well. It does help. Under shadow and lighting, this is another super important one. Just move anything that is shadow, lighting, and then everything under ray tracing. Just go ahead and set all this stuff to disabled or low, because all this stuff is not things that you're going to need for your overall gameplay. You would much rather have the extra frames over shadows, like if we're just being 100% real about it. Now, under post-processing effects, you will see NVIDIA DLSS. If you have an RTX NVIDIA graphics card, go ahead and set this to performance over quality. I can't really tell you why, but when I made this change, it felt 100% smoother and 100% better. This does not matter. I know it says something about 4K and 8K gameplay. I recommend it whether you're playing on 1080. It doesn't matter to me. Put that on performance, you'll see an overall change. Now under ambient occlusion quality, this is another thing you're not going to need. Just go ahead and disable that. The motion blur, there's no reason for you to have a motion blur unless you prefer it. I would recommend disabling it. For the scattering and independent transparency, I do disable that as well. These are things you're not going to need. And then the last thing I want to touch on as far as graphics go, so the RAM usage target. This is going to be how much you're letting Cold War use of your RAM. Now I've set it at 80% because I do have other things I keep up in the background, so it is nice to have that extra RAM if I need it. Like I said, another personal preference is going to be based on the person. But now that we've got all our graphics settings changed, like I said before, I was running 65 to 85 frames while in game. We're going to jump back into a game now, see what kind of frames we're running, see if it's running smoother, and maybe even get a little bit of gameplay with it. Alrighty guys, so I did decide against getting gameplay only because I want this video to be as short and time efficient for people as possible. As I mentioned before, I was getting anywhere from 65 to 85 frames in a custom game standing still. Now, if you transfer that over to a multiplayer game, that might be more like 40 to 60 frames standing still. Now, as you can see, I'm in a custom game again. I'm standing still. We did our game setting changes, and I'm getting anywhere from 190 to 210 frames, which is 2.5 to 3 times more frames than I was getting before, which is just insane. I do recommend changing these settings. It is going to make a huge difference in your gameplay. It's going to make everything feel so much more crisp and smooth. But if this video was helpful, guys, just be sure to give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to my channel. Also consider checking me out on Twitch and saying what's up at twitch.tv/hi_I'm_titties. That's with 2 D's and a Y. And until next time, guys, I'll see you in the next video.